Alright, action RPG gamers, let's hop into it. Diablo 4 Season 7 or Path of Exile 2's Early Access or Beta. These are both happening around the same time, and I've been getting asked again and again, which one do I think is better and which one is worth your time? To be honest, I'm going to be playing both of them, but I want to go ahead and kind of highlight the main things that we're getting with the beta in Path of Exile 2 as well as with Diablo's new season. There are so many things to go ahead and go over, and I want to go ahead and introduce you guys to kind of like the bigger picture here in terms of like what are the incentives to play. Obviously, Path of Exile 2 is a brand new game. Even though it is related to Path of Exile 1, there's a lot of systems and mechanics that are going to be completely different. So I want to start off with going over it with some of the stuff with Path of Exile. The reason why, though, these games are kind of being compared is these are going to be the top tier action RPGs of, well, the next couple months here, until of course we get maybe Titan Quest or maybe if Wolcen 2 launches. But with POE2, it's coming out December 6th, and with the Diablo 4's Season 7's PTR, that's coming out December 3rd. So they're basically coming out at the same time. And while some of you guys may not have 30 hours a day to play, because it's an action RPG, it takes time to get your character powerful, you may not have time to play both. So this is why I wanted to go ahead and make this video. So I want to start off with some of the highlights with POE and kind of talk about some of the more interesting things. So if you haven't played Path of Exile before, every single class can pretty much use whatever you want in terms of your weapons and as far as the skills. They call them gems, but basically like you can play a warrior that shoots out fireballs. You could actually do a lot of things that you normally wouldn't be able to do in another action RPG. I mean, just to go over all of the weapons over here, this is what we have. We have so many different weapon choices. Now, some of these skills like Fireball, you should probably be able to use that with anything, but there may be some sort of like sword slash or like a power shot with like a bow. Some of these will be locked to certain weapons. Basically, the gem skills will be locked to a weapon archetype, but you are not going to be limited. That's the one thing I really want to go ahead and highlight in this video, because I think some people might have the mindset, oh, if I select a sorceress, I have to use a staff. No, there are sorceress builds. Maybe you want to do some like dual claws. Maybe you want to use a bow or a spear, because Path of Exile is not like your traditional action RPGs. They let you actually have way more freedom. Now, with the freedom of doing kind of whatever you want, you can mess up your build, and there will be builds that are objectively going to be bad because you selected a wrong node. The thing with Path of Exile that I really want to drive home is it will be able to reward you if you do put in the time to actually build your character, and you could do a lot of weird things in the game. It's just about spending the amount of time that's required to get that build up and running. But again, I want to let you guys know you have so much freedom in this game, and what they're really trying to do with Path of Exile 2 is make it more approachable and accessible for newer players, and I think they've done a really good job. You can see that these are all the skill gems, and when you select one, it'll also tell you what other support gems work, because in Path of Exile 1 right now, you can put support gems that don't even work with the thing, and that's pretty bad. Now, Path of Exile 2 is going to be launching with 6 classes. So in the very beginning, there's 6 classes that you guys can select from, and later they're going to be adding 6 additional classes. Now, each class has 3 different ascendancies, which almost are a completely subset of a class. It almost is kind of like a evolution of your class, and I don't want to get into every single one of these because I have a video that kind of goes over and shows them, and I'll link that down below because I don't want this video to be super long. But again, each one class, like the warrior, can go into 3 different things at the end. It's kind of like your super class, but it's going to be something important that you actually select the one that you want, because the campaign is very long, and it takes a while before you're going to be able to access your super class. They call ascendancies. There's even a transformation. The druid, though, is not going to be available at launch, but you can actually transform, I believe, as the witch to like a demon girl that does like more damage, but you're also going to be taking some more damage. So there are some like pros and cons to certain builds that you may want to look up before even starting your game. I mean, this skill tree is super complex, and I'd probably recommend you guys to either follow a guide if it's your first time playing Path of Exile 2, even though it's going to be the first time for most people. A Path of Exile content creator that's been creating videos for a long time, like I've got thousands of hours in the game, has been making guides for a while. It's going to be a night and day difference between trying to go into the very first time for yourself. You could make a build that it bricks itself at some point if you select something like Chaos Inoculation. But I also want to go over kind of the progression in the game. So as far as the early access goes, there are 3 acts, and then you play the same 3 acts on a harder difficulty, and then you get to endgame. Now, that is for early access. When the game launches, there's going to be 3 additional acts, but it's not going to be available for the beta. So it's going to take a while. They said it was a 50-hour campaign, so that's going to be very, very long compared to, again, about a 10-ish hour campaign, I would say is pretty normal for most people's first time playing through the Path of Exile as far as POE1. So it's going to be a hefty investment. That's why I'm saying select the class that you want, because if you're stuck there for 50 hours and then you decide to swap, well, it's going to be a rough swap, right? And I also want to go over some of the things in Diablo as well. But those are the things that I wanted to mention. There's a couple other ones that I wanted to go over. Another thing that I wanted to mention, because I saw this in some of my comments, was saying that the game costs money. The beta will cost $30 to buy in unless you have a key. Now, the game is going to be free. You can check it out on the official Xbox page. It's set up to be free, and there is no pay to win. There are microtransactions in the game for cosmetics and additional storage, and what I would say convenience. It's a little bit of a gray area, though. I'm going to be straight up real with you guys. If you want to engage in trade, you need at least what's called 1 premium stash tab in order to list your items. If you do not have that, you're not going to be able to effectively trade, which is a huge thing in the game. However, when you do actually purchase your beta code, they give you in-game credit to actually get that premium stash tab. What a premium stash tab allows you to do is kind of change some of like the options on colors and stuff, but it's mainly because you're able to list the items for people to actually search for when they're actually browsing the Path of Exile trade website. So that thing right there is really good. And then there's a lot of conveniences with like organization with all these different items. It gets pretty rough if you do not have enough stash tabs to kind of hold some of the stuff. And I'm going to be making a dedicated video that goes over this, because this is really important, as a lot of people will be getting their beta code via the purchase. But you can also get a free beta code. However, I don't know how many are going to be given out. So if you guys signed up for it, check your email. Maybe you actually had one. I did have one like follow-up email, so make sure you guys check that. It could be something that you may have access to already. But I want to kind of go over some other things. There are going to be 100 bosses in the game. I'm not sure if they're going to be all available at the launch, but this is something that they did mention. And each of these bosses are going to have its own mechanic. But again, the campaign is supposed to be 25 hours, but it's going to be 50 once all of those do launch. But as far as the end game variety in it, you're kind of seeing the end game right here, which is basically kind of like maps, but you can modify these with some towers. And then if you finish the actual like mechanic that you choose, whether it's breach or whatever these other mechanics are, you're going to have a boss for each one of these that's going to be a real pinnacle boss. The reason why I'm calling it a real pinnacle boss is because right now I'm going to kind of compare this game to Diablo, because that's the point of the video. With the Diablo bosses, especially when you're farming the mythic items, it's kind of like the boss spawns in, you one-shot it, and you do it again, and you do it thousands and thousands of times until you get all of the things that you want from it. These bosses will require you to do kind of more mechanics. Sometimes you're going to have to collect these things called fragments, and then you put them in this little device, and then you get to fight the boss. It's more of kind of a progression and a journey, and if you do fail it, well, you lose out on your resources. So there is an investment. It's not like, oh, if you fail, you can just do it infinite times. How it kind of works is there's 6 portals, but it may differ from POE 1 to 2, but I'm just assuming that it's going to be relatively similar in that aspect. And the game is going to be challenging, but again, it's going to reward you for putting in the time with your character. That's one thing that I want to say definitely separates Diablo from Path of Exile. Diablo is definitely more of a casual entry, and that's not to discourage you and say you can't play it. I just really, again, recommend you guys to follow a guide. Now, moving on with Diablo 4 Season 7's PTR, I want to go ahead and go over kind of the cool stuff with it. The main thing that you're getting here that is brand new, I think I want to highlight this first, is the brand new powers. Now, there are going to be 24 powers in total, and I've actually made a dedicated video that goes over every single one of these. I'll link that down below also. But another thing I want to mention before I forget, if you want to play POE 2, you could check out POE 1. They are going to technically be different, separate games. POE 1 is not being deleted when Path of Exile 2 comes out. So if you want to get ahead, I definitely recommend you guys to watch. You can watch my guide or someone else's guide. I'll link my full walkthrough guide that will get you through the entirety of the campaign. And if you watch it, you'll definitely get an edge on the POE2 launch, because you're going to know what some of these things do and some of the interactions. Some of these may change, but for the most part, you will definitely get a huge advantage, because you're going to see that the game is much more challenging. But the main thing they're getting with Diablo 4 is specifically these powers. And again, I'll link if you guys want to see what every single one of these powers does do. And some of these are just kind of number changes. Some of these will do some sort of amount of damage, but realistically, because you're doing some sort of damage, I don't know if these will actually scale good. And the reason why I'm mentioning this right now is because a lot of builds in Diablo will say like your, cold skills, fire skills, your core skills, whatever like the skill tag is, gets an increase. And when you get all these glyphs and all these paragon nodes that give you an increase to like marksman, cutthroat, these will not facilitate some of those tags, right? So these may actually only be utilized for utility versus dealing actual damage. So that, take it with a grain of salt. With Diablo 4, I have to say this, sadly, is there are always certain bugs and things that interact with the game. So even if we looked at something and decided these are the best things, there could be a skill or interaction that is bugged that makes it so much better than everything else. Now, granted, that's the point of the PTR, but sometimes these things do make it through. And I'm just trying to keep your guys' expectations realistic with trying to make a build around something cool that you see, because again, it may not be very powerful. But there are going to be some buffs, and if you're looking at a lot of the class buffs, the thing that I'm personally the most excited about is going to be the rogue buffs, where your shadow clones actually gain all of your damage, which is going to be crazy good. But a lot of these are just kind of number changes, like they're like, okay, we'll take this skill, give it 100x, slap, 300% damage, and that's kind of some of the newer updates for the classes. Now, every single class will be able to select 5 of these powers, and then you get one like ultimate power, and the ultimate power is going to be a little bit stronger than some of the other ones, but for the most part, that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of like the powers. Again, all classes will have this. Now, all classes will pretty much get some sort of numerical buff, unless you're the Spiritborn. Mega nerfs definitely come into that class, or it's essentially bug fixes. But some of the other classes, some of the underutilized skills, I mean, instead of getting 30x damage, you're getting 45x, and the base damage does get increased over here. So again, a lot of these updates to the game are going to be number changes versus like a brand new skill. There could be some other uniques in the game that allow you to do more things, but if we look at some of these like other skills that are unique to this season over here, where like when an enemy is affected by X, Y, and Z, you get to do this and it does some sort of damage over here. Again, you may not be able to scale this damage because this is like a witch power versus like, a core skill or a fire skill. So just keep that in mind again. Other things that I want to go ahead and mention is the headhunts. So these are basically the newer areas. If you played the vampire season, this is going to be something very similar to the vampire season that we had in Diablo, where there's kind of a zone, you go to the new zone, you kill the enemies, you get some sort of like new currency, and then you find these little altars, and that's how you unlock the powers. Now, it says completing Whispers has a chance of spawning a head-rotten boss. So there is going to be a new boss. What I'm kind of worried about, because this is like open world content, is the boss going to be something, again, that we just slap once, when we have our trillions of damage and we just slap the boss once and he's just gone? I'm really hoping to see this boss be something more powerful, but because we don't have like set items or anything new, what is this boss going to drop that is so special that we actually want to farm? Because once we get our powers maxed out, I don't know what we're doing that's brand new. Again, if we look at like the vampire season, which is kind of like what the same, idea is like when we had like the vampire area, it was like, okay, we go to a green helltide, right? We kill the stuff over there and we get, some currency to upgrade. But once I have this maxed out, I don't know what I'm going to do, especially with the PTR. I'm assuming we get like some sort of a boost, so to go by even faster. And then on top of that, one thing though that I'm really excited about though is the Armory. This is something that players have been requesting for so long, including myself. I'm like, Blizzard, we should have had this yesterday, but it's finally coming out. The Armory is going to let you swap between multiple builds. So if you're like, oh, I want to go speed farm in the pit, I got my build. If I want to do open world content, I could do this build. If I'm playing with a friend and this friend really sucks, I need to run my carry build, right? So there is some cool stuff, but this doesn't really change the end game of it, I would say. This is just more for like, I've already made this build. I really don't want to invest all my time into making a new character or all the time investing into swapping. But yeah, the Armory is finally here and I'm really excited about that. There's also going to be these new things called occult gems, and this is almost similar to it reminds me of when we had those malignant sockets that we can actually throw in, but these are going to give us some armor as well as some resistances, because that's normally what we would put in our jewelry slots. But then it gives us a tag condition to get 25x increased damage to some sort of condition, right? While you have this, you gain movement speed or crit chance, or it's just a numbers game, right? So I want to say, at least as of right now, unless there's ones that they didn't show off, and if they had more interesting ones, I really feel like they should have showed them off to like, I could equip a gem that says I can use druid items or I can use druid skills, okay, that's big brain, I like that. But if these are all numbers things, I would say I'm a little bit underwhelmed and kind of disappointed with this edition, even though I'm just trying to give you guys a comparison. But again, this isn't going to really affect gameplay other than the numbers go up, which, you know, that does get some people excited, but there comes to a point where I have all my power. What am I supposed to do? Just slam the pit again and again? That's where I wanted to go ahead and kind of like mention what we're going to do. Now, again, in Season 7, we're going to have all these Witchcraft powers. So again, you get to select 5 of them, and then you get to select the ultimate. Tornado is probably one of the best ones. I did a dedicated video going over all of them, and pretty much a lot of these, they don't really have the full effects yet because they say like X attack speeds, like how much attack speed do I get? But if we're looking at some of these, and some of these will give us like 50x, you know, crit damage. If we add up all these, and like these are like 20x in total, let's say, you know, some of them are going to be like maybe 20% attack speed, maybe crit damage, maybe vulnerable damage. Okay, we add them all up and we get like maybe 100x damage, and that's a pretty decent amount. But does that get people excited enough? Well, it's kind of up to you. Maybe you had a favorite build and it was just not able to do content that was high enough, and now you can use the tornadoes and suck everything in and then just do massive amounts of damage, maybe with like pen shot or anything that kind of splits the damage up because of some AoE. I think that could be kind of fun. But other things that I want to go ahead and like kind of highlight here, there are going to be new uniques for certain builds. Like there's going to be a ball lightning one. So if you're a fan of maybe the Season 2 ball lightning, this may be another cool build to go ahead and actually check out. But the gameplay is pretty much the same as it was. It's just that you're doing, again, more X damage. And then again, the balance changes are most likely the changes like the shadow clones. That one's pretty cool over here. And then the Spiritborn is getting mega nerfed. There's a lot of things that are bugged with it. So if they fix all the bugs, that class is going to be moved down quite a bit. But I still think the class will be relatively strong. And the reason why is you can get 100% overpower with the Radakipilike and 100% crit. That is still a very big thing that you can get. But it rolled anywhere from like 0.5 to 1% when it used to be up to 3% on like the amount of damage that you got based off of your spirit. So that's going to be actually pretty good. But if I'm again looking at like 20%-ish power per node, and then we get like 100x, and then we get some sort of pull, that's kind of what I'm thinking most builds are going to be like. Now, obviously Diablo, it costs money, because I know some people, maybe they're hopping into Diablo for the first time. If you want to engage with the newer content, well, you're going to have to buy the expansion and the base game. These prices are, as of right now, there could be some sort of bundle that they launch when Season 7 actually does launch. But to kind of sum it up, this is kind of what we're looking at for both of the games over here in terms of kind of like, you know, what to expect out of these. So I'm curious to know what you guys actually plan to play when both of these launch. Like I said, I plan to play both. Technically, with Diablo 4 Season 7, it comes out 3 days earlier, so obviously that's a no-brainer. But again, for some people, I totally get it. You don't have the time to play both. Just want to go ahead and deliver and show you guys kind of what's on the table. But let me know, guys, what you are excited about most in either Path of Exile 2's Early Access or Diablo Season 7. And to be honest, I'm actually very excited about Season 7. This is probably one of the best seasons that we've ever got in Diablo. But the real question, though, is it going to hold people's interest in enough? Because Path of Exile 2 is really looking spicy right now. But hey, we're going to be playing both on the channel here. Anyways, that's going to wrap up the video. If you guys enjoyed it, drop a like on it. If you want to see gameplay of both of them, as we're going to be covering both on the channel, and more build guides and stuff, and check the pin. I'm going to have a lot of videos that will really help you get started with either Path of Exile or other things for Diablo. Like if you want to see every single one of the new powers, I went over every single one of them. Maybe you can come up with a cool idea for a brand new build that you want to play, or check out the POE 1 playthrough because it'll get you ahead of the game. Anyways, take care, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out.